Hey, I got your book recently. I got it off Amazon. Don't burn
How'd I do?
this book. Well, I'm only a couple of chapters into it, but you know what I love about it is that you write how you speak, and so it's very engaging, rhetorically. What do you say? Kind of rigorous, not just no, not rigorous, but kind of like energetic. It's very energetic, so I like it.
Yeah, well, thanks.
So,
I
yeah,
did feel that I should write it the way that I speak. So, there's
I
a
think
lot of
like
I do a lot, and I think I say literally. People always say, Dave, you always say literally. I think there's a couple literallys in there.
why did you make it out for Ben Affleck?
I see you haven't gotten that far yet. Um,
No,
no,
I haven't.
the reason it's for
I
Ben
think I can
Affleck.
guess.
Yeah, I recount one of several stories that were really the key moments in my political awakening. And one of them was the very famous viral moment, which I'm sure most of your audience has seen. It's been seen millions and millions of times on YouTube, where Ben Affleck was a guest on Real Time with Bill Maher, and Sam Harris, the famous atheist, was on as well. And Sam was doing the protected interview. That's when you're not part of the panel, the
Ooh,
three-person panel. You're on the same side of the desk as Bill. You're supposed to get a one-on-one interview. They started talking about inner peace, actually. They were talking about meditation and mindfulness. Sam was promoting his book called Waking Up, A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion. And somehow they started talking about religion. Thus, they got into Islam and
yeah.
radical Islam particularly. And Affleck started just screaming and getting angry. And the famous line, he called Bill Maher and Sam Harris gross and racist, even though they said nothing that was gross and racist. Also, Islam is a religion, not a race, but putting that aside, it was a perfect wake-up moment for me because I had been having all these issues with the lefties and what was going on. I considered myself a progressive at the time. I was on the Young Turks network. But there was always this overly emotional reaction to if you discussed anything that they didn't want you to discuss, you were a bigot, a racist, a homophobe, all the litany of things that you could be. And when I saw Affleck doing it, and he was red in the face, and he was jacked because he was about to be Batman, and I just saw it was like watching this A-list actor perfectly act out the overly emotional craziness that I had been seeing from the progressives. And to launch an attack like that, not on a scary conservative or a scary religious person, but on Bill Maher, who's the biggest lefty we've got in America, and Sam Harris, who's a mild-mannered neuroscientist who I didn't even know who he was until that night, until seeing it. That was the first time I had ever seen him speak or even heard of him, I think. To watch that reaction to those guys, it was like, oh, you guys really do eat your own, and you don't want to honestly discuss complex issues. And that was one of the couple wake-up calls that I note in the book. So I credit Affleck, because if it wasn't for his overly emotional tirade, I may not be here today.
Gosh, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, I'd seen that video on Bill Maher, and I felt really sorry for him. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's just emotional. There's really no logic. But would you consider yourself? You seem like a mild-mannered bloke yourself, not folk, bloke. That means guy. Were you like that? I mean, did you get really kind of heated and emotional? I'm not saying
So
that's the thing that only the left do. Obviously, people on the right get like that as well. But
Yeah, no, it's a good question because it does seem now to be more of a condition of the left. That of course, emotionalness and your rush to judgment and passion isn't a right or left thing, but it does seem that the lefties these days are much quicker to get angry, hostile, call you all the worst things in the world. While people on the right, broadly speaking, if you say an opinion that they don't like, they'll usually talk about it with you or agree to disagree or something like that. I can truly tell you this, but people can go back and watch all my videos that I did on the Young Turks. I was a lefty, I was a Bernie supporter, the whole thing, but I was never super emotionally attached. It's not, I think that's partly temperament, right? Like we all have a certain temperament that maybe we're born with, and then nature versus nurture. And my parents are relatively calm people. I grew up in a relatively calm household. And I talk about this in the book, but I grew up in a household where we really did talk about everything. I mean, every holiday was people fighting about politics and going back and forth. And then dessert was served and everybody was good. Like we never let politics turn into like, oh, now we hate each other. And when I saw that thing happening on the left, I realized, and this is now 6 years ago or so, I started realizing there's something really dangerous here. And that's why now when we see that this thing has burst forth into every part of society, and cancel culture and stopping cars on streets and attacking people and burning down federal buildings and all of these things. People are like, whoa, where did this come from? And I'm like, yeah, I've been trying to warn you guys. I said, don't burn this book, but I should have wrote a book called Don't Burn the Store That This Book Is In, because that's what they're doing, right?
Thank you for watching this clip. You can click here to watch the full episode. And I want to say a big thanks to our sponsors and to our amazing patrons for making all of this possible. Please do us a favor before you go. Click that subscribe button and then the bell. And that way YouTube will be forced to let you know every time we put out a new episode.